Oh God, Anne Widdecombe on Strictly.
That's an image I'm never going to be able to get rid of now. Hello everybody, welcome back to Boys on Film. Here's Paul Joseph, he's here. A really good TV show for you today, which is available on Shudder streaming service. It's the 101 Scariest Horror Movie Moments of all time. It's a celebration of horror history's most frightening moments, and there are plenty of them. So it's spread over 8 episodes. I've seen 3, you've seen 1, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, and obviously it starts at 101 and it counts down to number 1. It comes from the producers of Eli Roth's History of Horror, which I haven't seen, but I've heard great things about that. It follows master filmmakers and genre experts celebrating and dissecting the most terrifying movements in horror history. I love a countdown show. I don't know about you, Paul, but I mean, there are plenty of them on Channel 5, like the most shocking celebrity moments and all the others that are usually shown around Christmas time. My other half hates them, so every time they come around, I was like rubbing my hands with Clea, getting so excited because I just love them because they're so trashy.
Yeah, they're very easy to watch, but I think with a lot of the British ones, the ones that annoy me is you have someone talking in really big detail about something as if they remember it from the time. They've just shown it to them beforehand and they're kind of like, they're like just regurgitating what they've seen, and it is a little bit like, I think sometimes the choice of who the people, talking heads people are, can be a bit annoying. I think for me, those kind of talking head countdown shows are always better when the people involved have some sort of expertise rather than just be famous people going, oh wow, and it wasn't it all crazy, and I was like, oh wow, and all that. It's like, and this one, to be fair, it is, even though when we'll talk about it a bit more, I wasn't necessarily 100% happy with the contributions in it. They were all horror related people.
Yeah, because you've got Tony Todd, obviously from Candyman. You've got Keith David, Joe Dante, the director of Gremlins. You've got Fede Alvarez, who did Evil Dead not too long ago. Mike Flanagan.
They're all more like modern horror directors who are, by I guess nature of being horror directors, quite nerdy and therefore quite into horror, which is fine, but it's also a little bit like, it's all a little bit of LA and a bit like, it's very American, and at times it's a bit like, oh, just, you know, some are all a bit samey. There's some academics and stuff in it, but yeah, it's like something that, yes, they're a director, but they're a director of probably some thing on Netflix that's, you know, and as I say, directing a film is, as I've said before, is no mean feat. One of the films in the episode I saw was Child's Play. What was really nice about that was he offered some insight into the filmmaking process, and he was talking about Twilight Zone, Tales of the Unexpected type short film that had inspired the particular scene in question, and also about some technical stuff about how they got a particular shot and how difficult it was to get. And that was great. Whereas a lot of the others are just people who are horror fans and obviously know stuff, but they're just kind of describing things and then saying how amazing they found it. So I'm wondering if whether, as the series progresses and you get to some of the bigger hitters in terms of the films, that they're maybe saving some of the talking to people from them. It's always nice when you've got people involved in those moments and those scenes as well, rather than just people going, oh my God, wasn't it scary and stuff.
Yeah. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be the same people all the way through it. It's interesting you said about the whole American thing, because I suppose because it's an American show, it is quite US centric. Understandably, I think it'd be the same if it was produced here. But yeah, you're right, because I suppose horror, when you think of horror, there are a lot of great British horror directors and horror writers that I think could have been part of this. It would have been nice to have. I guess it's not easy though, is it, financially?
In the credits at the end, it said there was a New York unit and a London unit. So I think some of it was filmed here. Edgar Wright pops up. I mean,
oh yeah,
Last Night in Soho was pretty much a horror film. He's a good film nerd. So a lot of people who are in old horror, like Hammer horror, and that aren't necessarily around anymore. But it just might have been a bit of balance for it to be a bit not just British, but maybe a bit more international. But then ultimately, a lot of content does come out of Hollywood. So.
No, that's true, because I mean, some of the most disturbing horror films that I've seen are international horror films. I mean, a lot of the French horrors really get under my skin. So I wonder if we're going to see these towards the end. I'm guessing that we will, because I mean, when I think of standout moments, scary moments, I don't know about you, but I mean, it's like Jaws when the head reveal You know, when you see the head reveal scene, the vampire child, obviously in Salem's Lot, that does feature. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it would spoil it, but there are so many others. I mean, you've got the arm grabbing scene in Carrie. Yeah, there are loads.
The guy in the corner in the Blair Witch Project.
Yes.
It's interesting. I don't know whether, because I would think it's interesting, because you mentioned Jaws, and there's a moment that you see right at the beginning where they're sort of previewing the series that it's from Jaws, but isn't that moment. So I wonder if they'll use some films more than once, because I kind of think if you're looking at moments, that means that arguably some films might have more than one scary moment.
And Jaws has. Obviously, Jaws has got more than one. I mean, yeah, there are so many horror films, I think, that are like that. I mean, Salem's Lot, I know it was a TV film, but obviously it features in this. Looking at some of the films that they featured, without, again, spoiling it too much, we've got Friday the 13th. I mean, obviously you're going to see Carrie, Alien, Child's Play in there, and American Wealth in London. So these are just some of the films that feature. And it is, because it's 101 Scariest Moments, it is all encompassing, isn't it? It's not like I suppose it is like the best horror films of all time, because it's the moments. So I don't know whether they're going to do a spin-off from this. I suppose the idea is you could do many things, I guess.
They do kind of give a bit of an overview of the whole thing and put that scene in context, and they don't cover a lot. I think, is it like 10 episodes in the whole thing?
It's eight episodes altogether, and I think I've seen 3 and I'm up to like number 60 or 70.
Yeah, so they give a decent amount of time to things. They don't fly, so it doesn't fly by. And I think what's quite nice is, you know, obviously, you know, I'm a horror fan, there's lots of stuff I've seen, but there's lots of stuff I haven't seen, so there's quite a lot of bits that you're like, oh, I don't remember that, I've not seen that, or it makes you think about something and think, oh wow, yeah, kind of like, you know, really sort of nostalgia about certain films. But there was a couple that were referenced in the episode I watched. One, there was like the film Cat People. There was also a film where it had behind, I think it was like a portmanteau thing, and it had a section about a woman visiting a corpse that kept opening its eyes, and it's some Italian film, and yeah, there's stuff that I was like, oh wow, there's kind of like there must be some ranking thing. So I guess they're going to be saving some of the really big things till the end. And there's one of the films they talk about, and they refer to the claw coming out of the bath in Nightmare on Elm Street. And even though that hasn't come yet, I don't know if they're going to do that. So yes, normally with the, you know, quite often when they have these things, it's like 100 to 1 or 50 to 1 in like 2 hours or something. So it's certainly not rushed through, but I just think overall, out of the entries that I saw, I would have liked a little bit more scoop or background from the actual making of that scene, or the kind of, you know, how it was done and stuff. And some of it does happen because people are passing it second hand, and you've got people who are real experts and saying this shot's amazing, and actually it couldn't have been this because that technology didn't exist at the time, so maybe it's this. But you still think it'd be nice to have a little, I mean, yeah, like Joe Dante talking about Child's Play, that's just perfect. They have, you know, they describe a little trick they did in order to make something happen. And
I was going to say the same thing, because I don't think it's it's not a new idea by any means, this whole countdown show, but I am a big fan of that style of program, just because I just find it's almost like somebody else talking about something that I love. It's like a connection thing. And when you hear these filmmakers saying, this was my favourite moment because, and I'm like, yes, I agree. And I'm like kind of punching the table and getting quite excited. But, you know, it's not the newest idea by any means. But I just like the fact that, you know, it's quite interesting listening to other people talking about their favourite moments. And also, like you say, there are films that I hadn't seen in this countdown. So it's almost like an advert for these horror films that I need to investigate, and I'm going to rent out or buy or whatever. So I quite like that. It is like a promotion in a way. Yeah.
The other thing is, I don't know whether I would prefer a show like this to have a presenter or a bit more of a sort of linking narrative. Like, you know, when they have like, I don't know, like the 50 best musicals, they'll have Denise Van Outen in a basque in a studio leaning on a piano.
Get Denise Van Outen to do this. Yeah. I don't think it's needed though, is it?
I wonder whether it might be quite nice to have like Kim Newman or someone like that, or even like someone kind of, and obviously you don't want to make it a bit silly. Maybe something a bit more about the overall as a countdown and how it got to that, and maybe a bit more of a framing thing might be a bit more fun. But on the other hand, it's a style, isn't it, now to have sort of documentary and stuff like this where you don't have narrators, it's all just the talking head stuff. But I suppose there's different ways of doing it. But I almost think once they get to like the top 10, you feel like there should be a bit more fanfare about that.
I would love to have seen some more people that I had a connection with, or people that I'm interested in hearing their thoughts on. I mean, John Carpenter, I would love for him to have been in this, but I guess it's not an expensive or that expensive show, so I guess they got budget restraints.
You know, there's one bit where they talk about a particular scene in the film, the orphanage, and what's quite nice about that actually is it is at the time a director talking about it, and they talk about a particular shot and a choice that they do with how the shot is done and all in one take that actually ramps up the tension more. But yeah, I just think, you know, have a bit more of that.
I was quite surprised at how low some of the scary moments were. I mean, Tale of Two Sisters, I think it should have been a lot higher. It's like when people do their top 10, you know, favourite Björk albums or something, you just think, that should be a lot higher. Why is that number 9? That's crazy. But yeah, it's everyone's opinion, isn't it? It's different.
I guess it'd be interesting to know how they worked it out, because obviously they'd have had to know what ones they were including before filming the sections. It's not a silly list. I mean, it's interesting. It says scary moments. I don't know if any of it will come from thrillers and different things, because you do get jumps in other genres than horror.
Scariest horror movie moments. So I suppose they are all horror films, but I mean, horror, it's such a broad term, isn't it?
But scary moments, and I've seen in any film I ever saw, was the aging makeup in A Beautiful Mind at the end, when they turned to Jennifer Connelly in the audience, and it was like, oh my god, that's really scary.
I haven't seen it. When you think about scariest moments in horror movies, what are they? What would you name? What would you put in this list?
That moment in the Blair Witch Project, where sees him in the corner at the end. There's that. For me, it's the sort of ones where there's something unsettling kind of going on or in the background. Jump scares are fine, we've talked about this before, but I think they're overused.
Would they likely to be classic films though, like Psycho, those films that are always in lists of best horror films? Or would it be likely to be less obvious?
The difficulty about some of these things is by the time you get to them as an audience member, you kind of know it. So I don't know whether, you know, the shower skit scene in Psycho, I don't know if I'd say that's a scary moment or a shocking moment.
I guess it depends, because I mean, I was terrified by so many films growing up, watching them at a young age, and they kind of scarred me for life in a way, and I still find them scary for that reason, because it brings back memories. So I suppose you could include that.
I mean, I was terrified by The Fog when I saw that when I was younger.
Yeah, me too.
The scary moments are often more about the build-up, aren't they, and the tension before the thing. And
also it's a really personal thing, isn't it? Because you could have memories of something triggered.
It's also not necessarily something that makes you jump and be scared in that way. There was a film with Javier Bardem in it called Beautiful, B-I-U-T, Beautiful, a few years ago, that wasn't really horror. It had a sort of supernatural thing, but it was more of a drama. The main character who he played had this thing where he would see ghosts of people who had recently died, and there was just a moment where he had gone into a building where a whole load of people had died who were like illegal refugees who were hiding somewhere, and there'd been a carbon monoxide leak and they'd all died, and then he went in, and then you just saw him look up, and these kind of figures with like wide open mouths in like terror, just like lingering there, just like a sort of like look up, they're there, and then look back. Or that thing about where you just know there's something off screen, and you're kind of going off camera, going, don't look at that, I don't want to go. And actually, they did that scene they talk about in The Orphanage was exactly that, where it's got a character looking away, and then turning round, and you see what she sees, and then it goes back. The camera stays with her, so you do that. Is it more dread? Is it more terror? Is it more like disturbing than just scary?
I'm going to go for 3 stars. Even though I've only seen 3 episodes, I'm very much looking forward to the others, because obviously they're going to be the juiciest clips, and I just want to hear what these people are talking about. But what's your star rating? Are you able to give a star rating after 1 episode?
I think for the 1 episode I've seen, I would give it a 3, just because I think it's a serviceable effort in a well-known style of doing things, and I would probably like to have been a bit more wowed, but you know, I would watch more, and I would be open to adjusting my star rating having seen more. We're
gonna have to come back to it. So it's the 101 scariest horror movie moments of all time. It comes to Shudder on Wednesday the 7th of September, just in time for Halloween.
Why do you think it's 101. Why are things always 101? Do you think that's just come from 101 Dalmatians?
I think it's more memorable as a title than 100 because it's a little bit odd. I'd love to find out what your scariest moments are. People watching at home or wherever you are, leave a comment down below.
In fiction, not in like the news, because that's just
God. Yeah, that would be a very long list if we were talking about news stories.
Oh God, Anne Widdecombe on Strictly.
That's an image I'm never going to be able to get rid of now. Always going to see you, Paul, and looking forward to the next one. And I love your Exorcist t-shirt, by the way.
That's got plenty of disturbing moments in it.
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be top 5.
That has that moment where the face flashes.
Yes, because that's illegal now. You can't do that in films, can you? It's like because it gets in your head and you can't.
Like subliminal thing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Apparently, it's illegal to do that in filmmaking.
Where's the fun in that?
See you next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Bye.